even going. I was having a stare down with the camera, but it wasn't even going.
Better luck next time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an episode of your favorite podcast, also known as Famdamly.
Yep. We are your hosts, Courtney and Miles. I was about to go Miles and Courtney.
I was going to say Miles and Courtney.
Same way.
Yeah, I am the mother of this podcast.
And I'm the stepdad.
I'm
just kidding.
Oh yeah, because it's not the milkman, it's the oh gosh, what was it?
The broom guy.
The broom guy. He's the real father. Listen to last week's episode if you don't know what I'm talking about.
For those of you who are new though, like I said, this is Courtney. I'm Miles. We are the coolest married couple in the whole world.
This is true. Our podcast is stories of people who have lived.
Yeah.
Because we are all part of one big happy family. And everybody has a story to tell. So that's what we're here to do, is tell those stories.
Yeah. And the stories that we have to tell are just other people's stories. So
we could talk about ourselves. It might get old pretty fast. And we do talk about ourselves quite a bit.
Yeah.
But hey, it's our podcast. We can do what we want.
Yeah.
Before we jump into things, do we have any news or updates?
Iowa is now one of our states.
I didn't know that.
Hey.
Normally when we record this, I already know in advance, and I just like fake you guys out a little bit. This time I didn't know.
Iowa, welcome.
Nice. We got a new state.
Yeah. How does that make you
fun.
feel?
It makes me feel very special.
Good.
Miles.
Good. You are pretty special.
Has anybody watched any of these recordings?
Yeah, let us know.
They're on YouTube, right?
One of them is.
Oh.
I haven't uploaded the other one yet.
We should get better about this and figure out how many people are actually watching.
I thought that was your job, social media and stuff. I'm just the tech guy.
Okay, tech guy. Did you get some good news for us?
Yeah, I was trying to read a couple articles, but
did it hurt?
What, reading?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
There was one. I think you might like this one. It has to do with a fox. So
it's a story about me.
Foxy lady.
Just
whatever.
Kidding.
Shut up. I'm just kidding. I love you. So a wildlife fan has struck up an extraordinary friendship with a young fox after he noticed she was ill. Bob Dunlop realized the fox had developed mange. Is that how you say it? Mange? Mange? I actually don't know.
It might be mange.
Mange?
Yeah.
I don't know why I said mangy.
That's okay.
It's Friday night. I'm tired. On her tail after spying her lack of hair on wildlife cameras set up near his home in Littleport, Cambridgeshire. Long story short is the fox got cured of mange. I'm going to call it mangy. I'm going to stick with it. He
noticed there was a lack of fur on it, and so he helped aid it, and now they're BFFs.
Now they're BFFs.
That's so cute. Okay. If I were to domesticate any animal, like any wild animal, fox is like, it's my number one choice. Always has been.
Penguins.
Foxes
would be cool though.
I could see you with a penguin.
Yeah.
We already basically got there with a wolf. With Denver. Denver's our German Shepherd, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually has wolf.
Speaking of which, he heard his name.
He has wolf in him. Like, it's genetically part of his genetic makeup. So,
yeah.
He's a big boy.
He is a big boy, and he's trying to get into his crate right now. You're right. I think it's mange.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm right. I mean, to
I
be
like
fair,
mangy.
to be fair, though, it was kind of an honest guess. What were you going to say? You have some more articles?
Yep. So I have a couple more articles. So after a childhood cancer diagnosis, a donor bone marrow from a little sister sends another girl into remission, or her older sister into remission. So that's kind of cool.
Where was this?
English city of Sheffield.
Nice. Love a good story.
Yeah.
Like that.
And there was one. This one is I shared one that was interesting to you. I'm going to share one that's interesting to me. So Voyager, right? The spacecraft that they sent back, like, was it the 70s? I think it was the 70s.
Sure.
Somewhere, 80s or 70s. So back in November, they lost communication with it for a brief period of time, and they just got it back up. And so the Voyager started sending signals again, like just kind of like, I'm all good, I'm still here, don't worry.
Do you ever like feel sorry for the stuff they send up to space?
Yeah.
So squeaky.
They used to send dogs up there.
No, they did not.
Yeah, they did.
Are you serious? That's not what I meant.
We're talking about good news, though, so...
That's not what I meant at all. I didn't know that. That's worse.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But
I was talking about like the Mars rover.
Oh.
And how it was alone up there,
He's
and
fine.
then like sent a really sad last transmission when it was dying. I'm like feeling
Womp
sorry
womp.
for a robot. I didn't know they sent dogs.
You got your Wall-E sympathies going
Womp womp.
because it's space related.
I'm gonna pretend you didn't tell me about the dogs.
Yeah, pretend I didn't say that. But yeah, so it's outside of our solar system now. It's been like 46 years since it left Earth, and then it passed Pluto like 11 years ago. So it's like outside of our solar system now. So we'll see where it ends up. Good on you, Voyager. Keep it up.
That's cool. Sorry, I keep yawning. Woo.
It's okay. I think there was one more interesting one. Boob. No, that might be it.
There's lots of good news around the world. These are just the highlighted stories that Miles decided to share today.
Yes.
And I have got a story for you.
Hooray!
For you.
You better.
This is gonna be a good one. I love to do stories based off of movies that have already been created.
Yeah, I know.
Is that bad?
I was going to mention this, actually. I forgot to mention this last week. So, do you remember the last week's story?
Yeah, of the girl, Mary.
Yeah, Mary, Queen of Scots. So there's actually a couple of movies made, and I had this pulled up, and I was going to mention it, but I forgot. But it has there's a movie that was made a few years ago with Saoirse, what's her last name?
Saoirse Ronan.
Ronan, yeah, Saoirse Ronan.
Saoirse.
Saoirse. Whatever. And Margot Robbie.
Oh.
I think she plays the other
Love
one.
Margot Robbie.
Yeah, she's Australian. So
she's also Barbie.
Represent. Yeah.
She's a woman.
Anyway,
Represent.
So, yeah, I was going to mention that. But anyway, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Movies,
no.
So what's this movie?
You said that so, like, I don't know, factually. You're like, yeah, I know. Was that a good thing or a bad thing?
Good thing.
Okay, good. So I will tell you about the movie in a second, but I'm going to tell you about the actual people because obviously it's based off a true story.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen this movie or not, but this is a really good one. I've only seen it one time, but it's one of the ones where when I remember that it exists, I always recommend it to people.
127 hours.
I've never seen that one. Could you imagine? This is an exciting story about a man who cuts off his arm. No, just kidding. So this is a story about a man. Hold up, I forgot to write down his last name.
Are you new to this?
His name
is this your first day?
Is Philippe Pozzo di Borgo.
Cool. Philippe.
He is French.
Can we just call him Phil?
Okay, Phil. No, it's Felipe.
No, Phil.
So Felipe was born February 14th, 1951.
That's Valentine's Day.
It is. It's also Felipe's birthday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fun fact. He is the second son of the Marquise de Vogue and the French Duke Pozzo di Borgo.
Cool.
So he had status when he was born. Okay. His older brother actually was the 7th Count Pozzo di Borgo in Russia. So they've got status in multiple countries. Needless to say, he was born into a life of privilege and abundant wealth, growing up in castles and manors. In the 1950s is when he was born.
Dude.
Right?
I want to grow up in castles and manors. Do you think it's too late?
To grow up a little bit. But keep dreaming, kid. Maybe one day you'll get there.
I do have weird dreams.
About living in castles?
No, not that weird.
We'll keep dreaming about living in castles, and maybe one day. He spent part of his childhood in Algeria, Morocco, Trinidad, Amsterdam, London, and Paris.
Amsterdam.
Yeah.
We should go.
Cool. Yeah, we should.
Party city of the world. I actually don't know if that's true, but that's where people go to party.
I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
So after he completed his education, he began working as a manager at Moet and Chadden, which was a French fine winery that produced more than 28 million bottles of champagne annually.
What year did you say he was born?
51.
1951. Okay.
The company owns 2,900 acres of vineyards, and it was established in 1743 by Claude Moet. And so he became a manager, like a working manager of this vineyard.
Mm-hmm.
And he also inherited the historic Hôtel Particulier in Paris. So he owned a hotel and he managed a vineyard.
Cool.
And he was born into basically royalty.
Royalty, yeah. Nobility, at least.
Yeah.
Cool.
So picture this. It's 1993. He is 42 years old and he is a very happy, wealthy man. Life is good. He lives in a Paris townhouse and is happily married to Beatrice, who was his childhood sweetheart.
Oh, so sweet.
The two of them had adopted 2 children because his wife had a blood disease that prevented her from having her own kids.
Rough.
However, they were able to go and adopt. So they have two children together. Anyway, life is good until misfortune showed up when they least expected it.
Her last name was Fortune?
No. You're such a dork. On June 23rd, 1993, at the age of 42, disaster strikes. While paragliding in the Swiss Alps, Philippe was distracted. He was thinking about some people that he had recently laid off of work while he was paragliding. It was just something on his mind, and he stopped paying attention to what he was doing, and he crashed. He ended up in the hospital for 2 years before he's able to go home.
Wow, imagine that hospital bill.
He became completely quadriplegic, paralyzed everywhere.
From the neck down?
Yes.
Okay.
Not able to do anything for himself. At the same time, his wife was diagnosed with and was dying of cancer. So his 42 years of happy life went downhill really fast. At first, he didn't adjust well to his disability. He actually attempted suicide by wrapping his oxygen tube around his neck. He explained in his memoir, which is titled A Second Wind, he tried to commit suicide in 1993, so the same year, by wrapping his oxygen tube around his neck and jerking backwards. It says, quote, "It is quite common, this reaction, when the pain gets too bad. I attempted it because I felt guilty that I was going to be a burden on others who had to look after me. It was unbearable because I had always been in charge, and then all of a sudden I was dependent, especially on a wife who was ill." Felipe says that he no longer thinks about suicide. And then just to finish his quote, he said, "I would be very sad if I had succeeded killing myself 19 years ago, because I have enjoyed the 19 years that came after that." End quote. And that was in 2012. According to Newsweek.com, they said the worst is yet to come because 3 years later, Beatrice dies of sepsis. And this is what kind of created like the black hole in his life. He then obviously was super depressed, but a miracle, I guess you could say, entered his life in the form of his aide. So now let's talk about, I wanted to read exactly how they said this because they said it in such a good way. In the forward of his aide, whose name is Abdel, so we'll talk about Abdel in a second. And Abdel is a cheeky, boisterous little Arab who pulls the aristocrat out of his lethargy. End quote. So, Abdel, his last name is Salou. He was one of 9 children. He says that he was, quote, the devil of his family from an early age. At the age of 4, he was sent to Paris to live with relatives, and by the age of 10, he was stealing and trying to extort his schoolmates. It didn't take long for his run-ins with the police to begin, and he eventually dropped out of school. And then he spent his time coming up with ways to steal from tourists who roamed the streets of Paris. He was an Algerian Muslim. He was hot-tempered and accustomed to solving disputes with his fists. He was also known as quite a bit of a womanizer. When Abdel was 19 years old, he was caught doing his, quote, black market work, which was stealing from tourists and then selling their goods. And he was caught and sentenced to 2 years in jail. So this is where their timelines cross paths. So Abdel is getting out of prison. Felipe is getting out of the hospital. Both of them spent 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after 2 years in the hospital, Felipe began interviewing for a full-time caretaker as he needed help with literally every single aspect of his life, 24/7. He interviewed 90 applicants, and then he finally met and interviewed Abdel. Abdel only applied because he was getting government aid for being unemployed. And then, I don't know if you know this, but this is the same in America in most situations. If you're getting government aid for unemployment, you need to prove that you're actively searching for a job.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, you usually go and interview and bring paperwork. You either get the job or you get a signature saying, yes, you showed up. Yes, you were interviewed. Yes, you were denied.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the same thing with Abdel. And so he showed up to this interview. He was there. His guidance counselor had suggested that he do this. So he went to this interview with the paperwork, had no intention of actually keeping this job. And actually, even like the day of the interview, he even robbed Felipe.
Really?
Yeah, he stole a, I'm not sure how to say this, like Faberge egg? Faberge?
Yeah, sure.
Something. So what it is it's a jeweled egg that was created.
Fabergé.
What?
Fabergé. I actually don't know. I don't
That
speak
actually
French.
might be it.
Oui.
I'm so good at pronunciations. Anyways. So these eggs, they're jeweled eggs, and they were created in Russia. And there were, this was created in 1885, these eggs, right? 69 of them were created, and only 57 are like still around today. And he had one of them, one of these 57 rare jeweled eggs, and Abdel stole it.
Didn't know Russia laid eggs.
Well, apparently they create them.
They don't lay them?
No.
I was just kidding. It was a joke. I'm not actually that stupid. But
I didn't think you were. It just wasn't funny. Moving on.
I'll shut my mouth.
No, but these eggs were created for Easter, so. Yeah. Anyways, a bejeweled Easter egg. Fabergé. I like the way you said that.
Did it have chocolate inside?
No,
Was it like...
just lots of money.
I prefer chocolate. I'm just kidding.
I'm going to see how much these eggs are worth. Hold on.
$50 million.
33 million.
That's close.
They were $33 million. Anyways, he stole this egg on his way out. It's fine. Some of the sources also say that he was applying for the job to fulfill income support requirements for his French visa.
Okay.
But either way, he was not applying because he wanted the job. This is the point I'm making. So again, after interviewing around 90 people, Felipe knew immediately that Abdel was the one. He said, quote, "This is the guy I need." This was during an interview with The Telegraph. He said, "I don't give a damn that he is out of jail. I needed him, and he became a friend afterwards." And Felipe said that Felipe said that the fact that they were both on the fringes of society, he as a disabled person and Abdel as a criminal, it created a common bond between them. So like in the movie, which I'm going to be talking about, it's called The Upside. Have you heard of it?
I think so.
Have you seen it?
Maybe. Tell me about it.
Well, it's starring Bryan Cranston.
Yep, I've seen it. We saw that together, actually.
Did we really?
Yeah, with Amber.
I couldn't remember. Okay, yeah. So it's starring Bryan Cranston,
And
Kevin Hart, and Nicole Kidman.
as the secretary or assistant or whatever, right?
Yeah, so you know the story.
Yeah.
Maybe this will jog some of
This
your
whole
memory.
time, I'm just like, so I know that movie doesn't take place in France. It's not about a French guy. It's like based in America.
You thought it was this movie, though?
Yeah, because like it lines up perfectly with the story. Like this guy, I mean, did he like in the movie, did he come from wealth? He was successful. Because of like a book he wrote and stuff like that.
Yeah. So they obviously like fictionalized the movie, but it's based off a true story, which is this one.
Cool. Okay.
And that's one of the differences is that in the movie, Philip is his name. He generated his own wealth. Yeah, and do you remember his aide's name?
Nope.
Del Scott.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so Felipe and Abdel, they changed it to Philip and Del. Yeah.
Smart.
Okay, so like in the movie The Upside, they also shared a similar sense of humor. Quote, he didn't feel sorry for me. He was irreverent, cheeky, and had an outrageous sense of humor. I suddenly found that I was enjoying life again, feeling like I didn't know what was coming next. This guy is the guy I needed. I didn't give a damn that he's out of jail. I needed him, and he became a friend afterwards. End quote. Oh, sorry, there's more to the quote. Became a friend afterwards. At the time, I was coming out of 2 years of hospital, intensive care, and rehabilitation. And Abdel was coming out of nearly 2 years of jail. And my wife was very sick and had a few months left to live. And we both were on our beds in bad shape. I needed a guy who was crazy enough not to be afraid of the situation. He's afraid of nothing at all, a very strong, available, and extremely generous man. So he was the best person we could imagine. End quote. He also referred to Del multiple times as his guardian devil rather than guardian angel.
I like it.
Abdel was hired when he was 21 years old, and then similarly to the movie, he was given a private apartment within Felipe's house.
Must be nice.
Yeah. So in The Upside, Bryan Cranston plays quadriplegic billionaire Philippe Pozzo, who finds new purpose in life through his relationship with ex-con caregiver Del Scott, who is played by Kevin Hart. Many of the things that Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart's characters do in the movie were inspired by real-life exploits of Philippe Pozzo di Borgo and his caretaker, Abdel Salou. Together, they made a game. So this is actually one of the scenes in the movie. And this happened not just once in real life, multiple times. But they made a game of speeding through Paris in Felipe's Rolls Royce.
Ooh, yeah.
Until the police pulled them over. Abdel would then explain that the reason they were speeding was because Felipe was having a seizure. And not only did they not get a ticket, but the police would escort them to the hospital because Felipe would play along.
I love it.
And if you remember in the movie, I think that started because they were arguing about something, and Kevin Hart, Del, like started speeding and basically told him like, live a little, like your life isn't over, live a little. And so then they started having fun. That actually happened in real life. Is this game? They did it often. And that was their bit, is like, no, he's paralyzed. He needs to go to the hospital. He's having a seizure. And the cops would escort them there. Then once the cops left, they would speed away again and go somewhere else. So
that's funny. I remember from that movie, I think it's one of the first parts of the movie where they actually start doing like mischievous stuff, where like they get high and they go out for hot dogs. And then Bryan Cranston, or Philip, he works in like the word niche, and then Della's over there like, niche, what does that mean? He's like, it's the boy version or the girl version of a nephew. I'm just like, that's my favorite joke.
What's a niche? The girl version of a nephew. That's funny. I remember the scene. I don't remember the joke. That's really funny.
Every time I see the word niche, I'm like, it like reminds me. It's one of those things. It's like connected in my brain. So.
It's funny that you mentioned the weed thing that
I said high. Getting high. I didn't say on what.
Oh, sorry. The getting high. They did talk about that. Okay, yeah. So in the movie, Del got Philip to smoke weed. When they were asked in real life if that actually had happened. And Felipe said, yes, that was true. He being Adele, said it would help me, when in fact it doesn't help at all. He said, it takes away the pain and puts me to sleep for 2 hours, but I wake up feeling tired. The first time I tried it, I was 48, end quote. So
he didn't try it in Amsterdam.
No?
Shame. Just kidding.
Another thing that Abdel did was he had Philippe's wheelchair modified so that it was capable of going as fast as 9 miles per hour.
Nice.
And Abdel would ride the back, just like how Kevin Hart would do it in the movie. The chair had a wing mirror and an onboard computer that allowed Felipe to execute a variety of tasks, including opening windows and using his phone. So that's kind of like how he was able
His
to...
wheelchair had windows? I'm just kidding.
So that's kind of like how he was able to be a little bit self-sufficient. But I think it's funny that Abdel was just like, let's figure out what else we can do with this fancy contraption.
Another scene that I think about this movie was the scene with the catheter. Do you remember that one?
I do remember that, yeah. Or he was like afraid to put the catheter in.
He's like, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I literally cannot do anything. Like I cannot move.
With it. Anyway, it's a pretty funny scene. It has some funny moments.
They did not talk about that in the interview, but a lot of...
I mean, you wouldn't.
I'll
get
more into this in a minute, but a lot of these things come straight from their books that they wrote. So I'm assuming if it was in the movie, it most likely in some variation happened. Mm-hmm. Especially knowing that Kevin Hart and Bryan Cranston really got the personalities of these two people pretty down.
They're pretty good actors.
So this is going back to the interview. Felipe said, I suddenly found I was enjoying life again, feeling like I didn't know what was coming next. He treated me like I needed to be treated in the tough times ahead. I needed to be back on track. Pity is the last thing you need. Pity is hopeless. Pity is what someone gives you because he is afraid to take care of you. End quote. So, basically he's, I love that. He's saying like life was really hard, but the fact that Abdel just like didn't care at all is really what helped him have a better mindset,
I like that.
Because it's so easy to look at someone, going through a hard time and being like, you got this, you can do it. And Abdel's just like, quit feeling sorry for yourself, dude,
So what?
And in some cases, you do need the first part, you got this, you can do this. Like you need that kind of encouragement. In other cases, you really don't. Mm-hmm. You got to get out of your own head and got to just go and live life.
Yeah.
And the best way to do it is to do it.
Not feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'd get tiring as well. Like people telling you that, like, it gets better, stuff like that. And I'm sure a lot of people, like not just, quadriplegics and stuff like that, go through that. Like, cancer patients probably hear that a lot as well. And it probably gets annoying.
Yeah.
That would annoy me.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's a human thing to do is like you want to support people, but there's there's some hardships that you just can't relate with. And so like, what do you do? What do you say?
Yeah.
Hang
in there, pal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a cat poster.
Let me know if you need anything. Mm-hmm. Like, what else do you say?
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. And like, if these people are like overly sensitive about it, you can't like joke around with it.
Right.
But I don't know. If it was me, maybe, I'm not suffering through anything like that, but if it was me, I'd feel like I'd be more on the joke side. Mm-hmm. Like there was this one story where it was a husband and wife. I can't remember which one it was, but one of them, I think it was the wife. She was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis. Yeah. And then she turns to her husband, or husband turns to her wife, whichever way it was. And she's like, so now we have medical proof that I'm 1 in a million. And I'm just like, I want to be that person. Yeah. Like if I ever get something like that, I want to be that person. So.
You never know until you're going through it, but I appreciate when people have a little bit of dark humor when it comes to these kind of things, because I know it's for them, like it helps them cope in a way, but it also helps the people around them like know that it's okay to be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. My favorite is when I hear people talk about like dead parents. I'm not wishing my parents dead by any means, but it always makes me laugh when it's like, what are they going to do? They're dead. Like, it's like, you're talking about your dead father in a disrespectful way. It's like, well, what is he going to do about it? He's dead. Those always make me laugh. I'm like, you have a good sense of humor.
So, Markiplier.
Yeah.
His dad's dead.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Died a while back, and he, like, even to like this day, he makes jokes about it and stuff like that. There was a TikTok that I saw, I think it was just yesterday, actually, where it's like, he had a filter that made him look like old. And then, it's just like, this filter reminds me of my dad. And then he like looks creepily through a mirror, and like the caption is, "My dad is dead," with like the filter on and everything, like looking kind of creepy and stuff.
That's funny.
So, yeah. Funny stuff.
One thing that I was going to mention is I actually, and you know this obviously, but one of my really, really good friends, she's not quadriplegic. She is wheelchair bound though. So Amber, if you do listen to this, feel free to correct me and tell me that I'm wrong. But she was born with a disease called spinal muscular atrophy. So her body and spinal the muscles around her spine deteriorate over time. And so there was a point in her life when she was a child that she could walk, and now she's wheelchair bound and everything. And I actually had the privilege of being one of her aides when we were in college, and we lived together, and I was one of her caretakers. And there were a lot of conversations we had about that kind of stuff where it was like, how do we approach people like you, in the most respectful way? How do we go about that without being insensitive, first of all, but also, I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say. What?
Nothing.
What?
I'm trying to be sensitive, respectful. But like my mind goes to, how fast that wheelchair go?
We talked about that a couple times too. But
anyway,
one of the things that she taught me is that you just treat them like normal. And obviously, like, it's not in the same sense of the word as normal as like what you and I would be, because we are quote unquote able-bodied.
Yeah.
But she's still a person. And she said like one of the hardest things growing up is when people would come to her in a public setting and talk about her. So she'd be there like with her mom, for example, and someone would be like, "Oh my gosh, your daughter is so beautiful. She's so brave." And she'd look up and be like, "Thank you.
Like, I am right here.
Like I'm in a wheelchair. I'm not brain dead." You know what I mean? Like, and so I think that's just something that we need to always remember, is that they're still human beings that deserve to be treated that way, and they want to be treated that way too. Because it's like, it's hard enough that they're bound to these wheelchairs to help them get around. It's like they still have minds and personalities and whatnot. But another thing with kind of going what you were saying, with the how fast does that wheelchair go? That was something that Abdel did in the story. He made the wheelchair go faster.
Yeah.
But another thing that Amber told me is she gets sympathy short of breathness. So like, when you're walking up a hill, right?
Yep.
And you're having a conversation, and the more you walk, like the more out of breath you get. And so you're talking and you start to like do the huffing and puffing and like breathing really heavy. And she would get into the habit of going up this hill next to someone or walking with someone, and then she would start to match their tone and start to mimic their out of breathness as she would be talking. And then she would think to herself, "Wait a second, I'm not out of breath."
Oh, that's hilarious. I love that.
Amber, you're awesome. I don't know if she listens to this podcast. If you do, again, feel free to correct anything that I've said, but you're awesome, and I admire you and look up to you a lot. So thank you for teaching me
metaphorically
that you taught me. Yes, moving on. So Felipe did talk about how he basically constantly was in a battle with pain, because even though he was paralyzed, he still suffered from quote unquote phantom pain. And in his words, he says, quote, "Phantom pain my ass." Sorry.
Bleep. Okay.
"It's very real. It's a neurological pain, scalding and corrosive, constantly on fire. I cry because I'm in actual pain, not because I'm sad." End quote. I said that so confidently. I didn't even think about swearing on camera.
You just get judged by our audience. It's fine.
Moving on.
Cover your kids' ears. Like 15 seconds ago.
So Abdel ended up working for Felipe for 10 years. The two became very close, obviously, during this time. According to one of Abdel's memoirs, he says, so this is Felipe talking about it. "According to Abdel's memoirs, I have changed his life. That may be true, but in any case, what I am certain of is that he changed mine." End quote.
It was mutual. That's sweet.
Yeah. 1 year during this 10-year working together, this 10-year span, 1 year they went on a trip to Morocco. While they were there, Felipe met a Muslim woman named Khadija. Khadija and Felipe fell in love and got married. Felipe and his new wife have 3 daughters. 2 are hers biologically, and then they adopted another together. He moved from France to his wife's home in Morocco, where he lived until his death in 2023.
Was Abdel married? Did he have any kids?
Coincidentally, during that time, Abdel also met a woman that he would soon marry.
But, like, was he married before?
No.
Okay. Because in the movie he was. Like, he'd been married and divorced and everything.
Yeah.
He had a son in elementary school and stuff. But...
Yeah, so that's actually fictionalized. One of the reasons that Felipe hired him was because he was available 24/7. He had no other obligations.
Nice.
Yeah.
Smart.
So no, he was not a deadbeat dad the way that Del was in the movie. He did not have a previous marriage, no previous relationships, no children. He met his future wife on the same trip to Morocco, ended up falling in love and getting married to her. And at that point, that is when their 10-year working relationship came to an end. This is, again, Felipe in his interview. He said, Abdel and I finished our collaboration when we both found our soulmates. We finished our time together without sadness or difficulty.
Sweet.
And then, according to Newsweek.com, in 2001, Felipe published a best-selling memoir, which was called A Second Wind, about his life and his odd couple relationship with Abdel. And then it turned into the 2011 French film called The Untouchables, which was really wildly successful and grossed over $486 million worldwide.
Wow.
So it's huge box office success in France. The Untouchables was remade twice in 2016 in Argentina.
In French, they speak French.
And in India. And then it was remade in 2018 with the American remake.
Cool. I'm just making fun of you.
I know, and I'm ignoring you.
I know.
The latest version of the story, which is pairing a white billionaire with a black ex-con, is meant to bridge the same seemingly insurmountable social divide in America as between a French aristocrat and an Algerian immigrant in the original story. So that is why, like, it just shows, like, the same kind of differences they had in their lives. So,
all right,
something that we Americans can look at and understand and relate to.
America.
So some of the similarities and differences between the movie, this is according to historyversushollywood.com. So like you said, Felipe in real life grew up rich, which contradicts with the movie in which the character states that his father gave him nothing and he earned every penny. In the movie, Del had a kid. In real life, Abdel did not. And then in the movie, Philip developed a romantic relationship with his assistant, Yvonne, who is Nicole Kidman, her character. And then in reality, Yvonne was a fictional character who's based off of a real-life assistant named Lawrence, and the two had nothing more than a professional relationship. And then another thing in real life that happened in the movie is the two of them, Abdel and Felipe, kind of welcomed each other or introduced each other to different kinds of art and music and literature and things like that. Mm-hmm. So whereas Felipe grew up with a very defined artistic palette, as you would call it, he introduced that to Abdel, who relentlessly made fun of him for it. Yep. And then Abdel, in turn, introduced him to like pop and rap and stuff like that. Neither of them fully loved each other's styles, but they welcomed it.
That was different in the movie because Kevin Hart was like, when he went to the opera, he fell in love with it.
Yeah, no, he didn't. So in real life, he didn't fall in love with it, but he did appreciate it more. Mm-hmm. But them like teaching each other about it did actually happen. So
opera gets a bad rap.
Tell us about it, Miles.
Just gets a bad rap. Because everyone's just like, opera's so weird and boring. And it's like, those, I don't know, I have a huge respect for opera singers because they're classically trained and like trained to like sing louder than an orchestra, pretty much, which is like amazing.
Really impressive, yeah.
And they're just like so talented, and they just like, sure, opera itself can be kind of boring, but like it also tells a story. A lot of operas like are a story. I'm just an opera advocate. Opera advocate. That doesn't work. Never mind.
Opera advocate.
I tried.
You're funny.
Opera advocate.
So back to the story. In July of 2012, Felipe was appointed a Knight of the Legion of Honor. Which is pretty cool.
I want to be a knight.
On June 1st, 2023, at the age of 72, he passed away in his home in Morocco. His net worth was estimated to be about 25 million. Abdel Salou now lives in Algeria with his wife and 3 children, where he runs a chicken farm. He remained close with Felipe for the remainder of Felipe's life, and his children always referred to him as Uncle Felipe.
Uncle?
Uncle.
Uncle Felipe.
Uncle
I think it said
Felipe.
Argo. Argo Felipe.
No.
Uncle Felipe makes more sense.
So I also wanted to share some quadriplegic statistics. The most common reason for the most common reason for quadriplegics is spinal cord injuries. I don't know how to have said that to make that better.
Quadriparalysis.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's true.
That actually sounded probably right. So spinal cord injuries are the majority, like the biggest reason why people are paralyzed. Okay?
Makes sense.
According to the National Spinal Cord Injury Statistical Center at UAB,
that's an actual thing.
Causes of
very specific.
Yeah, the causes of spinal cord injuries have changed drastically from 2015 through 2018, and the main reason the biggest cause for spinal cord injuries is car crashes. Actually, it's vehicular, so I'm assuming that means car, but that could mean
trucks, boats,
yeah, so
airplanes.
Crashes,
helicopters.
That comes in at 39.3%. The next highest being falls. So I'm assuming from big heights, tall heights, 31.8%.
Help! I've fallen and I can't get up.
The next one being violent, primarily gunshot wounds, which is 13.5%. And then sports and recreational activities causes 8% of spinal cord injuries. Medical/surgical injuries is 4.1%, and then other is 3.1%.
Other.
I don't know what would cause an other. I don't know if
Sleeping
I want to.
wrong.
Could you imagine?
I feel that.
Oh.
Courtney slept wrong the other night, and her back hurt for like the
3 days.
Following 3 days. Yeah.
Yep.
You're getting old.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Researchers have estimated that as of 2019, 17,730 new spinal cord injury cases occur each year, which is between 249,000 and 363,000 people currently living in the United States with an injury.
Wow.
Yeah. The average age for the injury is 43.
I'm getting there. I'm just kidding. I'm still like 14 years away.
So in the 1970s, if you had gotten a spinal cord injury, the minimum average stay that you would have in the hospital was about 98 days. Today, your average stay in a hospital with a spinal cord injury is 11 days.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say like a bigger number. I'm just like, that's just because they're milking you from your money.
Nope.
I've worked in a hospital and know how they work. Kidding. I actually don't. I was that I just work here kind of guy. I still am.
You're like, listen, buddy. Okay, so let me say that. So in the 1970s, the rehabilitation stay was about 98 days, whereas the acute care was 24 days. So they would do the care and then the rehabilitation.
Okay.
And so now the acute care is 11 days, whereas rehabilitation is 31 days. And this is average. So if you have a spinal cord injury, your stay in the hospital would be around 42 days total, including rehabilitation.
Okay.
Which makes a lot more sense to me when I think about it.
I'm just glad I didn't live in the 70s and that I don't have a spinal cord injury.
True
Blessings.
that. 39.5% of spinal cord injuries are considered paraplegic, which is waist down, whereas 59.9% are quadriplegic, which is all four limbs. Approximately 17,730 new injuries occur each year. 78% of those new cases are male.
Like email or snail? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I'm so funny. I'm not funny. I just tell myself I am.
So that's about it. That is the story of Philippe
And Abdel.
and Abdel.
I like it. There you have it, folks. Another person's story. That's our specialty.
What'd you think?
I liked it. It was good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's such a good movie, though.
It is
Seriously,
a really good movie.
It's one of those that I forget frequently that it exists. But when I remember, I'm like, oh, you need to watch that, even though I only saw it the one time.
Yeah.
So Bryan Cranston, as always, is a phenomenal actor. So is Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart's very small.
Yeah, I know. Have you seen like a side-by-side with him and The Rock?
Oh, yeah.
They're
like
really funny.
in a million movies together.
Yeah. Best buds.
Well, at least two. Jumanji and Jumanji 2.
They're in more than that as well. They're in a movie like a CIA movie where The Rock plays a CIA agent and then Kevin Hart is just like an average Joe.
Huh.
That one's pretty funny.
Do you know Kevin Hart is in Modern Family?
I did not know that. Did I know that?
Yeah. Because
Okay,
you were watching that episode with me and you're like, is that Kevin Hart?
Oh, yeah, he was... Yeah, okay.
The
I remember
neighbor.
that. Yeah, he was the neighbor. I remember that. Fun fact. So, you know Borderlands?
Uh-huh.
Like the game?
Uh-huh.
They're making a movie of it, right? And Kevin Hart is playing one of the main characters.
Interesting.
Which I like Kevin Hart. But nerd side of Miles, he's not a good Roland, I don't think. But prove me wrong, I guess.
That's a challenge, Kevin.
Just that
What are
whole
you gonna
casting, the whole casting that they did for that movie. I'm just like,
Do you ever think of celebrities and how weird it is that they actually have first names?
no.
Because, like, when you think of a celebrity, you think of their full name, like Kevin
Right.
Hart. But thinking of calling him just Kevin is weird.
Yeah. In my mind, I call Anna Kendrick Anna.
Okay, that's a
just
little bit
kidding.
different because she's like your love interest in your mind.
Yeah.
But could you imagine like Scarlett Johansson? Just calling her
That'd be
Scarlett.
weird. That would be weird.
Robert Downey Jr. Hey,
That one's-
Robert.
Robbie
Hey, Robbie.
or Bobby.
I saw a meme the other day that I sent to you, but I'm going to share this with everyone else. And it was like, rumors are that Tom Holland and Zendaya are getting married and he's taking her last name. So now people are just going to call him Tom.
Your favorite trick of the week.
I laughed so hard and I sent it to Miles from across the room and I'm just like watching him like open this. And he didn't see the bottom half where the actual joke was. He just saw like, rumor has it Zendaya and Tom Holland are getting married. And he's like, oh, that's cool. And he puts his phone down and I was like, open it up and read it.
Look at the bottom. Yeah.
Oh, good times. Or Bryan Cranston. Hey, Bryan.
Yeah.
Like, he's not a Bryan. He's Bryan Cranston.
When I'm famous, I won't be Miles. I'll be Miles Mitz.
Yeah.
Or if I have like a pseudonym that I want to go by. Yeah. Anyways,
thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. We love you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the story. If you have any suggestions or stories that you want to hear, or any stories of your own, send them into famdamilypodcast@gmail.com.
we have a lot, but we'll get to yours eventually.
I love it when you guys have suggestions.
I do too.
Because it kind of keeps me on a creative track.
Yeah.
Yeah. So send in your suggestions. Find us on our socials.
Like, follow, subscribe.
Help us out with the YouTube thing. We're getting there slowly but surely, but your interaction would mean the world to us as well as your reviews.
Yeah.
So
5 stars, because, I mean, do we deserve anything less? 6 stars.
Absolutely not.
Just do like an extra star.
Unless we've like mentioned you in the podcast and we did you a disservice, then feel free to like knock off a star. We get it. We get it.
We'll pay royal. No, we won't.
Royalties. We'll buy you a milkshake.
We'll make you a
Just
milkshake.
one.
I have ice cream in my freezer. I might make myself one. Anyway.
All right. So long, farewell. How do you stop this thing?
Press the stop button.
With this?
Over to the left. Stop it and then leave.